gentlemen, the show is about to start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
It's time for Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Built by the Barndominium Company, presented by Resto Pros of the Midlands, and part of the Chief Sports Network.
Touchdown Carolina! Touchdown Ace Sanders! Pressure! And he just dives in!
Here's J.C. Shurburtt, Phil Wollinax, and Jamie Bradford.
All right, greetings and good morning. Welcome aboard and welcome home. Inside the Gamecocks, the show built by our friends at the Barndo Co. and presented by Resto Pros, there when you need them. We know a lot of you need them right now. Resto Pros of the Midlands, owned by a great Gamecock, Jeff Sturgis. Resto Pros Midlands, SC.com. Resto Pros all across the state of South Carolina and beyond, of course, and so many going through so many different things. This is where they shine. And if you need to head to their website and check out all of their services and what they can do to help your family move past some of these just heartbreaking, tragic moments that we've been going through from Hurricane Helene, Resto Pros is right there. The Barndo Co. builds dream homes, and they're doing it in the Carolinas and in Georgia and in Tennessee. Visit thebarndoco.com. JC and JB, Phil is still dealing with some issues in the upstate, as many of our guests are, and as many of you are. We are going to put out as much as we can this week until we can get back fully in gear and ready to go. Ole Miss and South Carolina is coming up this weekend. As we all well know, the Rebels were toppled in Oxford by the Kentucky Wildcats just a few days ago, and JC and I will certainly talk about that. But look, man, we were off the air on Friday because of Hurricane Helene, and then it came through, and here we are dealing with one of the worst tragedies I've seen in my lifetime, to a neck of the woods that is very near and dear to my heart. I know that. We go up to Maggie Valley often, to our family's home up there. Obviously, I know you've spent plenty of time being from the upstate in the western North Carolina mountains, East Tennessee, the western side of the great state of Virginia, and so on and so forth. Our friends down in parts of Georgia, and our friends down in parts of Florida, and of course all of us here in the Palmetto State. It really has been awful, JC, and we I've been okay here in Charleston, which is crazy to think. Right here where we are, we're usually the ones that get the brunt of most of it, but it's up there. We said last Thursday, we were talking last Thursday about this storm. Before we get to sports, because we don't want to be tone deaf. Like, we know people are going through things, and we're going to use our platform as much as we can to help as many people. Maybe you need to use us to get the word out about something or whatever it is. Our network is here for all of you. But we mentioned last week when this thing came and it was going to shoot up into the mountains, and we saw that trajectory. I remember specifically saying, the mountains can't hold this. This is not going to be a good thing. And obviously it has just been catastrophic. And so our thoughts and our hearts are just full of prayers for all of you. We'll talk plenty of college football today, but this has just been tragic. And we love all of you and your families. And we're so sorry that you're going through this, and maybe something small that we do here will help you be able to separate from all of that just for a little bit from time to time.
Yeah, absolutely. My family's from the upstate, Greenville, Spartanburg, is where they all lived. I checked in on everybody. Everybody seems okay. My brother, one of them continued to have power. The others did not. My mom has a generator. She lives down in Simpsonville, but she lives on a lake, and she said that their house was okay, but across the lake looked like a war zone, like a bomb had gone off. She lives in a heavily wooded area, like a lot of the upstate in Western North Carolina. And then I just can't imagine what the folks in Western North Carolina are going through, such a beautiful part of the country, an area that I've enjoyed my entire life. And I know you have. And, when I think of Asheville and Hendersonville and Brevard and Flat Rock and the on over to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Maggie Valley and all that, Waynesville, over on the Gatlinburg. I mean, I think some of the best times I've had in my life, have been right there in that little area. And even when I've lived out of state here and also in Nashville. Once I get the past Knoxville, onto we call it the Windy Mountain Road, which I-40, which unfortunately I think is closed. I know I'm almost home. And that's what that little stretch means to me, even when I'm not there visiting. The wife and I and the kids last summer, not this past summer, but the last, went to Gatlinburg, got a cabin, had a great time, 4th of July. A bear ate our ATV. And honestly, I was thinking about those bears too that have been kind of prevalent around Gatlinburg. They did get some flooding, and that's on the heels of a few years ago, the fire that burnt a lot of the place down. And I love that part of the country, East Tennessee and Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge and all that. And it's just thoughts and prayers to everyone. I think what's shocking to me, JB, is that it wasn't really, we didn't really talk about, we talked about the coast. We talked about South Georgia. We talked about Atlanta maybe getting hit. The forecast made it look like that's kind of where it was going, and the thing turned east. And you're right about the mountains. It's just not set up for that type of deluge. They said it's 1 in 1,000 years. And having been through that in Columbia back in 2015, the 1 in 100-year storm that flooded Columbia, and then you see what happens up there. It's just one of those things. And I just hope and pray that the recovery is quick. I know it won't be. I know there's a lot of tough days ahead for a lot of people. Both in the upstate and in Western North Carolina, but definitely thoughts and prayers go out to them. You mentioned the show. The reason, we normally, if we had a situation where technically we weren't able to do it, we just would skip it. But I felt like, and JB both felt like, and it's just going to be us. We're on a different technical platform here and recording this. We both kind of just felt like, if you're out there and you're a Gamecock fan, you listen to our show, and maybe it's been a really terrible, tough time this weekend, or for the last few days, maybe we can bring some brightness to it, talk a little ball, and let you know that we're here for you, and all that. So just glad to be here talking with you today, JB. And again, thoughts and prayers to everyone out there affected by Helene and just a tragic situation.
Yeah, it really is awful. And again, if you look, we have a platform, we have an app, we can send notifications, we can do all these things. If you need help with something, you need to find somebody, you've got a way to help others, and you need us to help get that word out, we can do it. JC, of course, owns the Big Spur. I mean, we've got all kinds of ways to be able to get messages out, and we certainly are here to do that if we can, to kind of be a facilitator of information during this awful, tragic time. I'll say this, and we'll move into some football here. I have just watched countless videos of Good Samaritans, people who own helicopters, people who own airplanes, people who have big dump trucks and things like that are maneuvering their way in and out of the mountains to just help. They're taking time away from their families, or taking time away from their jobs to go up and help people who need help. Thank you. That is really, that says so much. I wanted to get in the truck and drive up myself, but I can't leave my kids. So I've been living vicariously through so many who are just trying to help. And these people are real heroes. And I hope we find out who they are that are going in and doing everything they can to save lives during this awful time. So thoughts and prayers again with everybody. And as JC pointed out, we're going to talk a little ball, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of separation from a lot of what reality is right now, which is just which has just not been fun. But it could be fun on Saturday at Williams-Brice Stadium if the Gamecocks can pull off what would be an upset of the Ole Miss Rebels. Kentucky did just that this weekend down in Oxford, 20-17. Ole Miss opened as a 10-point favorite over South Carolina on Saturday afternoon. That was bet down to 9. It's now hovering around 9.5, 9, depending on what you look at. But it does look like, JC, that maybe the Wildcats, and we'll talk about more about the Gamecocks win over Kentucky and Lexington here in just a little bit, because it looks a whole lot better than maybe it did at the time. But maybe Kentucky kind of laid the roadmap for how you do this here against Ole Miss. I mean, Wildcats played ball control offense, obviously had a couple of big plays that helped them, especially towards the end of the game. Defensively, they frustrated the Rebels. Ole Miss anxious to always get back out there and keep playing, right? They want that offense to just keep churning. And the Kentucky offense stays on the field, keeps Ole Miss off the field. And then when they get on, they're frustrated. The front seven for Kentucky had 4 sacks in the game. They caused all sorts of ruckus. That's kind of who the Gamecocks are. Like they run the football and throw it when you need to throw it. And let's try to have some high percentage plays here and there and a couple of big knocks, and defense is going to carry us for 4 quarters. So, I guess it's hard to say that you want to mirror anything. Kentucky's defense and Carolina's defense are a little bit different in how they run things, obviously. But that formula worked Saturday. I'm sure Shane Beamer and his staff spent all day and night taking notes and probably trying to implement some of that into the game plan if they hadn't already.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. My mute button is not in the normal place. I don't think anybody wants to hear me breathing while JB's talking about football. But yeah, now Kentucky's a little bit different. Phil mentioned something during the picks last week, I think during Fab Five. He mentioned with Kentucky, he said the spider web has a hole in it. And what he means by that is, and I got this from Josh Pate, who's very creative with some of the stuff he comes up with, as am I. Kentucky is a spider web team. I think South Carolina under Will Muschamp was a spider web team as well. They kind of, if you get caught in their spider web, they kind of ugly the game, and then that's how they get you beat. They'll eat you, so to speak. Well, the spider web was in full effect, and Ole Miss went right in it and got stuck. That's exactly what Kentucky needs to do to win football games, and that's exactly how you beat a team with a powerful offense and a lot of weapons, like the Ole Miss Rebels. The time of possession in that game was almost 2-1.
Yeah.
JB, Kentucky almost doubled them up, and yardage. Ole Miss had more yardage by 17. Brock Vandergriff played his best game ever Saturday. And Dane Key played his best game ever. I thought, 8 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown, and they beat him. And the things that stood out to me as it relates to Carolina is, number one, Ole Miss struggled blocking. Their offensive line, has some transfers on it. You didn't hear much about them. You heard much more about their receivers and all the skill talent and Jackson Dart and all that. But they struggled. They could not block Kentucky consistently. They really struggled with Weaver and with the big guy in the middle, and the front seven in general for Kentucky dominated the game. On the flip side, I thought Ole Miss's front seven was really good. Walter Nolan, number 2, is going to be a big problem. He's just like the guy from Kentucky, every bit of a 5-star guy. I did think they were a little susceptible in the secondary. I thought, who's their corner? Amos couldn't really grabby. Yeah, he didn't really cover anybody unless he interfered blatantly. Mm-hmm. And so, you kind of look at it. Well, can South Carolina's receivers make some plays down the field? Who's going to play quarterback? The thing that concerns me about this game are several things. First of all, Lane Kiffin made mention of this in his press conference yesterday. He said South Carolina is a completely different style of defense. Yeah. They're more twitchy, fast, athletic. come after you that way. He said both defenses are very problematic. It's just different. So, if you're South Carolina defensively, Clayton White does take more risks than Brad White and Mark Stoops. So I think that means there's opportunity. That means it just becomes a game of tag almost. Can you get or capture the flag? Can you get to the quarterback before he can get it off? And Carolina's done that a lot this year. Garrett Nussmeier, there were some times where Carolina would get home and he would just make an outstanding play. Can Jackson Dart do that? He certainly has a good set of receivers. Trey Harris has 50 catches this year in 5 games. Yeah. But the rest of their offense just kind of disappeared. You didn't hear anything from Juice Wells or, some of those other guys. And they didn't really have that many opportunities. I also don't know if South Carolina's going to be able to line up and run the ball and all that against Ole Miss. But I do like their chances better with Rocket Sanders than maybe Kentucky with Sumo Kongbai, who they don't really give the ball to, or Karngbae, my bad, Sumo Karngbae. They don't really give the ball to him that much. He's averaging 4.3 yards a carry. I don't know why he didn't get more carries for Kentucky, but he doesn't. They kind of did it with some short passes and just simply not going very fast on offense. So, if Rocket Sanders is healthy or whoever's playing, this is a huge game for the South Carolina offensive line. I think, because like I said, the Rebels up front are as good as anybody in the league, with the talent they have. Ivy's an outstanding pass rusher. The list goes on and on. So you can't let their front dominate, and you got to, in order to use your offense to play defense, you have to get first downs. You can't go 3 and out. But it's a fascinating matchup. I don't think, necessarily that it was the best thing for South Carolina for Kentucky to actually win the game. I think just the fact that it was close. Nick Saban said the hardest thing to do is to get a team up when they play bad and win, because they don't understand what you're coaching. So credit to Shane Beamer after Carolina played bad and won against Old Dominion to get them back up for Kentucky. That was good coaching on his part. But, they lost. And so now Lane said they're all pissed off and, trying hard to shake it and all that. Now, you mentioned something last week about a team with a lot of portal players. In these situations, how do they respond? That's an interesting point that you've made up almost the whole season. That we'll find out in this game. How hard is it to rally a bunch of I don't want to say mercenaries. That sounds negative because Carolina uses the portal too, but a team primarily made up of transfer portal guys after a loss like that nobody on earth expected.
Well, to your point, Coach Kiffin, who I think had some really, really interesting things to say, he kind of mentioned some of that, not necessarily specific to portal players, but he did say he said, quote, "I think that they were really disappointed," talking about his football team. "I think they were really upset, really hurt. I told them today that that's a good thing. For the guys that were in the room that didn't and just went on with their day and it didn't really hurt, that will show you. The more you're invested, the more that you put into something, you're going to feel different afterwards than somebody that isn't invested and doesn't put all their heart into it." And I think it was a good thing that they all struggled so much the last couple of days. So that does tell me, at least based on Coach Kiffin's comments, JC, to what you were saying there, that, even though he has a ton of portal guys, that they at least have bought into what Ole Miss is selling as to who they are in their program. And I don't think that anybody should misinterpret what happened on Saturday as, well, maybe Ole Miss isn't as good as we thought they were. They're really good. They're really, really good. And they're going to continue to prove that as the season goes along. Now, hopefully that doesn't happen on Saturday against South Carolina. But, when you look at what's left on their schedule, they have to go on the road again next week. They got to go to LSU after they leave Columbia. And then they finally get an off week before welcoming Oklahoma, going to Arkansas, Georgia, et cetera, et cetera. So they're going to have big opportunities to continue to prove kind of who they are. And they do have a schedule that sets up that still allows them to win, plenty of ball games and still be knocking on the door of the college football playoff. They finished with Florida. They finished with Mississippi State. Those games very, very winnable for the Rebels. But yeah, I think that they'll be ready to go. Ole Miss has been a lesser version of themselves on the road in the SEC over the last few years, and I think that that's a good thing. But I'll say this, and we'll hit a timeout, and we'll come back and touch on more of this stuff as we begin to look into the matchup. Carolina, you talked about Shane Beamer getting them kind of off the mat and going to Lexington and putting that whipping on the Wildcats like they did after they struggled through Old Dominion. Lane Kiffin, even though his humor and his personality seems very dry, he is a heck of a motivator, and his guys will be ready to go. I owe Kentucky a major apology because my synopsis was that it was a very fragile program, and maybe it is. It might still be a very fragile program, but it just looked like one. And I thought after Carolina whipped them, and then they got their hearts broken by Georgia, man, it's that's just a tough out. The team that you kind of consider your main rival now in the league walks into your ballpark and spanks you all over the place, and everybody's laughing at this on national television. And then you welcome number one to town, and you've got a chance to beat them, and you can't. You get your hearts broken. And it just felt to me like this was a mudslide just waiting to happen. And credit Mark Stoops. There's a reason why this guy's been there for a long time. He's a good football coach. And he got his guys up and at them and prepared, and they went over to Oxford and did what literally nobody thought they were going to do, including their own fan base, which was win the game. So there's multiple examples here of teams in this little circle that we're talking about of getting up and getting ready to play. And I think that goes back to something our buddy Mike Morgan said a few weeks ago. And John Strickland has said it on our show. Pat DeMarco has said it on our show. It hurts a lot more for the fans than it does for the players. Not that it doesn't hurt. It does. It hurts them bad. But they know they have to get back to work and move on. The rest of us get to stew in it. And they get back to work and they move on, JC, and they go get ready for the next ball game and they get prepared. And there have been multiple examples of that thus far early in the SEC season.
Absolutely. I mean, gosh, Georgia went through probably the worst 6 quarters on offense I've seen them go through since Kirby was, well, maybe not since Kirby's been there, but I don't know. That's a bad 6 quarters. You score 13 against Kentucky, and then Bama just beating the tar out of you. And then all of a sudden, as I've seen Mike Bobo do before, the reins came off and he starts calling plays like Demon. Remember when he used to talk about the play Demon? That was I swear that was that last touchdown that they threw to take the lead. That was that play, Demon. So and then boom, they're there. I mean, they look like Spurrier's Gators out there. And Georgia's got such good receivers and a good quarterback. You kind of wondered why in the world they weren't scoring there for a little bit, but they got back up. I mean, everybody in this league is going to have to understand, put the hype away, forget about what the names on the front of the jerseys and who beat who and what week. All that's irrelevant week to week. It's such a good league now, top to bottom, JB. You're going to just have to get, it's like the NFL. Any given Sunday, any given Saturday, anybody can win. Auburn should have won against Oklahoma. I thought that was a lock. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Till the fourth quarter, I was right. And then things fell apart quickly, on the plains. And that's just how good everybody is in this league. Everybody shows up expecting to win. The kids are resilient. The coaches are resilient. You're not quarter by quarter. You're not going to get a pass in the SEC. And I think that's been proven out. And I'll finally say this before we get to break. For Ole Miss, you mentioned the LSU game. This is the biggest game of the year. They don't win this one, they're going to Baton Rouge staring 3 losses in the face. And that's probably more than they could still get in with 2, depending on who the 2 are. 3, that's an uphill battle because that probably means LSU is going to go 10-2 or South Carolina could sneak in at 10-2. I don't know. I doubt it, but you could still believe if the Gamecocks win the game. There'll be other teams that from this league and other leagues that they'll take over a 9-3 Mississippi with losses to Kentucky, Carolina, and then Georgia, whoever else they play, or LSU. And then you're asking them to go beat Georgia, go beat Oklahoma, go beat all these other teams. And I just don't think going down 0-3 in the league is going to get them to the playoff. And that's what they expect in Oxford this year, because they would have been in last year. Same thing in Columbia, Missouri. They got a big game this weekend too, but this is a massively important game for Ole Miss this weekend. And all those things kind of concern me when it comes to the Gamecocks, probably because we hadn't seen the Gamecocks play in 2 weeks. And, there's questions about key players playing or not. My concern is hopefully is just all for naught, but I'm as concerned about this one as I have been any of them. And, it just sort of hit me right after Ole Miss lost that game. I'm like, man, number one, they shouldn't have lost. Number two, this is going to get their attention. It's either going to get their attention or their season's going downhill fast. And so, we'll see what happens.
There's a lot of teams hitting a stretch run right now this is going to tell you everything that you'll need to know about who they're going to end up being and where they're going to end up being at the end of the season. South Carolina is in that list, of course, after the Rebels. They take off for back-to-back road trips, as we all well know, to Tuscaloosa and then to Norman, Oklahoma. They'll probably need a little luck on their side, just like some of us are looking to have some luck when we play the South Carolina Education Lottery. Hey, Gamecock fans, Carolina Jackpot scratch-offs are on sale. Enter your tickets online or in the Players Club app. You just download it. It's a free app for a chance to win $50, $75, or even $100,000 live in an upcoming women's basketball game. See sceducationlottery.com for game odds and details. We'll step aside for a quick timeout. An abbreviated version of Inside the Gamecocks on this Tuesday, October the 1st. Welcome, October. We'll be right back.
There's nothing like Saturday in South Carolina. However you enjoy Gamecock football, Gamecock Traditions has a long-standing legacy of being a part of your game day. From tailgates to touchdowns,
Diving and into the end zone.
Gamecock Traditions has what you need and want with our beloved Block C logo. Get into Gamecock Traditions in Lexington or the Village at Sand Hill, or visit GamecockTraditions.com and have it shipped to your doorstep. We look forward to taking care of your family. Go Gamecocks.
I'm not allowed to tell the ref how bad he is, so I'm going to need you to do that for me. Oh. He said, you're gone.
I'm a beggar who could use some help. I'm a seeker, searching for myself. I'm a rolling stone, just waiting on a friend. I'm a lover, wishing on a star for another, with a broken heart to hold each other close until the end.
Switching is easy. We do it all the time. In fact, State Farm agent Tony Pope, right here in South Carolina, can switch you over so you can start saving today. Tony and his team are ready to welcome you to the State Farm neighborhood. With Tony Pope, it's easy to switch and save. Just give him a call, 843-884-3400. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Nana's Porch presents a Southern staple delivered right to your doorstep. Nana's Porch locally crafted pimento cheese has been a hit for years at weddings, tailgates, and other events. Now you can order online and have it sent to your home. Visit nanasporch.com. That's nanasporch.com and click the pimento cheese tab to choose between their original pimento cheese and their jalapeno smoked pimento cheese set. nanasporch.com, man, that's good.
Welcome back inside the Gamecocks, the show built by the Barndo Co. It is, remember, wear Garnet on Saturday, Ole Miss, Carolina, 3:30, ESPN. They want you in your Garnet. I don't know if they'll have the Garnet lids and the Garnet jerseys and the Garnet pants. I don't know if they're going with the Fire Ant look or not. I have no idea, but I do know this. They want the fans in Garnet. And if you need to upgrade your Garnet, you know where to go. Gamecock Traditions, GamecockTraditions.com. You can order it online and have it sent. Clearly, right now, shipping might be a little bit of a hassle depending on where you live because of this just tragedy known as Hurricane Helene. But if you are going to be in the Midlands this coming weekend and you want to stop in and see what they've got everything. I just bought a pullover from there a couple of weeks ago. GamecockTraditions.com, Village at Sandhill, and in Lexington. Get your Garnet for game day. All right, so JC, all right, so let me say this real quick about Kentucky. I mentioned the stretch run going into break. Carolina, we know what's coming. You mentioned Ole Miss. After this, they're going to have to go on the road to LSU. They're coming off of a loss. So if they lose this weekend, as you pointed out, they could be staring at 3 straight losses. However, predicting the SEC is not something I'm prepared to do anymore. So maybe they go in and beat LSU, even if we take them down this weekend in the capital city. Kentucky, though, boy, it's funny how it can change quickly. Because I mentioned, right, Carolina throttles them. Georgia squeaks out. Then they've got Ohio. They're 2-2. They're 0-2 in the league. Oh, my gosh, we're making the trip to Oxford. And they win. And now they're 1-2 in the SEC, and they're 3-2 overall. And their next 3 games are as follows. After this week, they're off. So they go into they win at Ole Miss. Then they get an off week. Let's all feel good about ourselves. Hey, everybody get healthy. We're feeling really good. You always like to go into an off week with a win. They did it on the road. Nobody thought they could do it. And then they come back. They host Vanderbilt. Then they go to Florida. Then they host Auburn. No disrespect to any of those teams. Vandy is having a much better year than we all anticipated. But we still don't know what to think about Florida, and we don't know what to think about Auburn. I've seen enough I've watched almost every minute of every game Kentucky has played, obviously. And they're better than all of those teams. So if that holds true, the Wildcats go from 0-2, staring 0-3 in the face in the league, quickly to 4-2. And my, how things could change up there. So what I'm getting at here is, barring any major setback, Vanderbilt walks into Lexington and takes them down, or they get beat by Auburn, or they get beat on the road at Florida, which could obviously, there's no doubt, and all these things could happen. But if they win 2 of 3 or they win 3 of 3, starting now and then moving forward and continuing to look backward, that win in Lexington looks better and better by the minute. 31-6. It's not like Carolina, walked in with a high-powered, high-flying offense where they threw up 500 yards. They didn't. They put up half of that, as we all well know. But they dominated every phase of the game, JC. And they won for the 7th time in the history in South Carolina's history of being in the Southeastern Conference, the 7th time going on the road and or winning by 25 points or more on the road in this league, which is crazy. Just 7. That's only happened 7 times, which is wild. And they did it this year. So that win really, really looks good right now. And I think most people around the country, when you pair that with the LSU loss, everybody's kind of giving them a mulligan. I mean, everybody has. Lane Kiffin even said it the other day, going, look, this team should be ranked really high in 4-0. Essentially, it got stolen from them in Williams-Brice Stadium. So Carolina will continue to find out more and more about who they are, to kind of summarize what I'm saying here. But that win in Kentucky, especially after what they did to Ole Miss this weekend, boy, does it look bright and shiny right now.
Absolutely. And, of course, nobody's amazing that the whole country says, well, South Carolina, got it stolen from them, but yet, everybody's still ranking their favorites in the top 25, and Oklahoma's miracle win over a bad Auburn team apparently makes them national contenders, I suppose. But Nevertheless, look, South Carolina has a chance to earn a lot of respect. This is the toughest 3-game stretch starting this Saturday that South Carolina's had since 2012.
Yeah.
And it's the same pattern. One really big home game followed by 2 brutally tough road games. There's no breaks, and we'll see how the Gamecocks can do. I mean, I think it's always a challenge playing Alabama. It's always a challenge playing Oklahoma on the road throughout the history of the sport, no matter what they're really like right now. I think as far as the timing of some of these games, it sets up well for Carolina. But as far as Carolina, I mean, you'd love to have Kentucky's stretch of games right now, wouldn't you, JB?
Oh my gosh.
Wouldn't you love to have, Vanderbilt and then have, Florida and Auburn? I would. That'd be great.
I know.
That'd be a pretty good thing. But you never know. As far as that stretch for Kentucky goes, they gotta escape the kill zone. And I don't know if I said that on our show or what. Vanderbilt this year reminds me, without the under center traditional triple option stuff that they did, they remind me a lot of Paul Johnson's Georgia Tech teams. Those teams would hang in the balance. It did not really matter who they played. They were in a close game.
Mm-hmm.
A 30-something to 20-something or 40s. They'd go beat Georgia Southern 42-38. They'd beat the Citadel 41-34. And then they beat Florida State 45-38. And it wouldn't make any sense at all. That's kind of what Vandy reminds me of this year. Kind of that you better bring your lunch pail to beat them, but they sort of always hang in the balance against just about everybody. And so that Kentucky game is going to be interesting because Vandy's not going to go up there scared of Kentucky because they went up there last time. But if they get past the kill zone, that Florida game should be close down there, depending on what the deal is with Billy Napier and if they've lost or if they're still fighting. And then Auburn is the biggest mess. That's the shocker to me. I mean, I kind of thought they'd be better. 5 straight home games to open the year. Nobody that you really circle and go, Auburn's going to have a tough day that day. Nobody. And yet they haven't beaten a Power 4 team. They're 0-3 in the league. 0-2 in the league, 0-3 against the Power 4. They lost to Cal, they lost to Arkansas, they lost to Oklahoma. I mean, gosh. So that's going to be interesting. But back to the Gamecocks, this is just a tough stretch. The Gamecocks could be a 3-4 football team by the next open date and still be a very good football team. Mm-hmm. It's just the way it goes sometimes. Now you hope not. I don't think there's I'm confident that they can compete with all 3, including Alabama. I mean, compete. I didn't say win, but compete. But this year has taught us that things happen week to week. It's unpredictable. You never know what your opponent's going to be, and you never know what your own team's going to be like. And so that would be the concern. And it's going to be the concern every week from here on out. And I think what you do is you just kind of hope for the best every week, and then at the end you tally it up, see what kind of season you had, and go from there. But this could be a defining stretch in a positive way for Carolina. But if it's not positive, the season's not over, as we all have seen from, like you mentioned, Kentucky and everybody else, because you got a November setting up that sets up a little bit better schedule-wise.
The thing that I like about this stretch is they have another open date following it.
Thankfully.
You know what I mean? Like that weekend right before Halloween, they're off. And so if you go into that off of a win in Norman, or you go into it off of a loss in Norman, who knows there's obviously multiple scenarios here, 1-2, 3-0, or 0-3, or 2-1. But either way, you get another reset before you hit the home stretch, and then you hit the home stretch by being at home when you welcome the Aggies to town. 3 of your next 4 games will be here, and the only one that's on the road is going to feel like a home game anyways because it's in Nashville. Speaking of the Aggies, here they are sitting at 2-0, and they've got we'll find out this weekend. A&M and Missouri, I think 2 teams that are very, very similar. They're gonna play on Saturday afternoon, right on ABC, right before South Carolina and Ole Miss kick off at 3:30. But look, the Gamecocks, this is a little bit of a, as you pointed out just a minute ago, that's what's crazy about being in in the SEC as opposed to any other league, really. You can go out and play really good football the next 3 weeks and not be above 500, which is disheartening to think about that. But I like South Carolina's football team, JC. I've said it since day one. I like them. We knew that the defense was going to be salty, and they've been that and more. And one of the things offensively, like remember last year, obviously you had Spencer Rattler in Dow Logan's first year running the offense here in Columbia. And you knew that you couldn't run the football. And so it was just going to be a hodgepodge of Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette highlights to move this offense and to put points on the board. And defensively, you knew you had some issues up front. And you knew that you had some youth in places that you probably, didn't need to have some youth in places. You had the injury bug bite you. We knew the issues on the offensive line. It just felt like throughout the year, I don't know if there was ever a week or a 2-week span where you felt like the team was getting better. Even in November, remember they opened November last year 3-0, right? Before getting beat by Clemson. And it felt like maybe they've turned the corner, but like it's not like you had the defense obviously was playing much better at that point in time, but you still felt like it was going to be kind of putting puzzle pieces together each. Can we just get to 6? Can we just get back to a bowl game? This team here, even with the loss against LSU, I've seen them get better every week. I mean, even defensively, you look at the scoreboard and you go, well, they gave up 36 to LSU. I don't think they played bad defensively in that game. I think they might have had a bugaboo here or there, but we've watched the offense cohesively kind of figure itself out and morph into this and morph into this and morph into this. And we talk to these, you and I make it a point to let people smarter than us talk. The John Stricklands and the Pat DeMarcos and the Garcias and the Perry Orrs, those guys know what they're looking at and they know what they're talking about. That's why they're on our show every week. So they can tell you, it doesn't have to be coming from us. And what they say when their microphone and the cameras in front of them is what they tell us when we're standing next to them or when we're on the phone. No, this is getting better. So what I'm getting at here is this football team from week 1 to week 4, I feel like has gotten better in every phase of the game. Would you agree? Do you see any phase of this of anything on this team that you say that has not gotten better or it's gotten worse? Because I don't. And I think if you keep doing that with this stretch run that's coming up, like that's how you beat good teams. That's what happened to Kentucky. They became the best version of themselves. They went into Ole Miss and they did what they do. And if Carolina is able to do the things that they do well, this stretch here could be a little bit better than people think it might be.
Absolutely. South Carolina, I guess, I was disappointed in certain aspects of the way the line played against Akron. That said, it's undeniable that they got better from Old Dominion to Kentucky and then got a lot better between Kentucky and LSU. They still give up too many sacks, but we've talked about that. Like John Strickland said last week late, with blitz pickup specifically, it's just all about communication, and they need to communicate better. And there's one or two of them that need to be more consistent. But in this league, on the offensive line, as I often say, you're going to get beat. They have to get better on third down in this game. If you're going to play keep away from Ole Miss, you've got to convert those third downs and get into more third manageable situations. And we'll see what the game plan is for that. I kind of think with how you need to attack Ole Miss's defense that the intermediate passing game, tight ends are going to be good. I mean, Jordan Dingle for Kentucky had a wide open catch he dropped in that game, and he probably still he'd have ran all the way to to Tunica if he'd have caught it. I think that their strength is their front seven and the secondary, not so much. So there's some opportunity down the field for those, 6 to 11 yard passes that set you up. But no, this team's gotten a whole lot better. I mean, from game 1 to game 4, it's night and day, especially on offense. Even with the changes at quarterback and running back and all that, the line is starting to gel. They're starting to be more comfortable. Wide receiver, people talk this to death, JB, but look, I don't see why they can't be 5 deep at receiver, because what you have is guys that have made plays every game. Maybe they're not getting open, and I'm missing that part of it. But, Jared Brown looked good. Mazio Bennett's been the number one guy. Jared Brown was probably the number one guy until he had to miss with an injury. Gage Larvidan is healthy now. You saw kind of the idea behind him with the 2 long receptions. That gives them a deep threat. Ventravius Jacobs, 31 yards per reception. And even a Delvon Campbell, who was a shoelace away from breaking a long catch and run. I didn't realize he was that fast in the open field. And then gotten one stolen from him. Could have been a huge clutch catch against LSU. So I think Carolina's got more weapons at receiver than maybe they think. I mean, again, I'd have to go kind of look at it. And then they do have good tight ends. Cole Kubelic mentioned this week or last week with his study of the Akron game that Brady Hunt did a lot of really good things blocking wise. And he caught his first pass, which I was happy for him for. But he is. And JB, I don't know if you noticed or not, he's seeking contact out and playing like he loves to stick his face in the fan and like it. So to speak. He people may not even notice that about him because people kind of follow the ball. So do I. But Cole mentioned that, and I go back and look. I'm like, dang, Brady Hunt's like he's going in motion and finding people and hitting them, and that could be big too for the offensive line, because you get a big tight end like that can help you run outside. South Carolina's been successful running outside. You can do a lot of different things with a guy like that, with motion and things of that nature. So I'm pretty fired up about him too, and kind of the way he's come on and made improvement coming back. And, he and Larvidan both were coming off injuries and, as well as Rocket. So with a lot of those guys, it's great getting back for fall camp. You're ready to go. But sometimes, like, especially with Hunt, he sat out all last year. It may take him 2 or 3 games to get back in. And I think all of that is part of the ingredients that went into the stew. And it is a bit of a stew as to everybody saying, hey, the offense, it'll be a work in progress early, but it's going to be really good.
100% agree. Well, and look, after week 1, one of the first things that we saw was perimeter blocking was terrible. I mean, if Sean Elliott is coaching you and you have no interest in blocking, you are not going to play. And so, I'm not exactly sure how the conversation went down, but understanding Sean Elliott, I'm sure it was something along the lines of, here's what you're going to do, and if you don't do it, you're asking to go sit on the bench. And to your point about Brady Hunt, I absolutely noticed that, sitting in the ballpark last week. I mean, he was a guy who was very interested in making sure that he did his job well. And Michael Smith's a guy who's going to continue to grow into that. He's more of a pass catcher right now, but he's going to have to learn how to stand up there and put his face in it as well. And obviously Josh Simon's the old man of the group, and he's had some mistakes. He's going to have to go out and do it too. But they're going to have to, that has to happen this weekend against Ole Miss. I mean, you cannot, whether it's Lenore Sellers, Robbie Ashford, or both, you can't just miss on these guys. You're going to get your quarterback killed. They've already had too many moments like that this season, and Carolina, Lenore's has gone down twice, and here we are, right? You lose Robbie Ashford. Let's not play that game, but you know what I'm saying. So we'll talk more about this. Some other numbers that stood out in the Ole Miss Kentucky game that will translate into the Rebels Carolina on Saturday afternoon, which we just can't wait for. I will say this, because we were off on Saturday and got to kind of hang out at the house. Again, while everybody was just going through just this awful tragedy. Of course, at this point in time, we had not received as much information just yet, as we were, well, I guess Saturday's when we started receiving more information about everything, but Friday we had not. And we were off the air. My kids and I hopped in my truck, JC. We drove down to Bluffton for the big annual blowout sale for our buddies at Palm Casual. I will say I got a little bit of a VIP experience here, knowing Aaron a long time. He allowed me in on Friday to pick out what I would want before the rest of you got in there. So we were able to relax. I have the best furniture that I'm never gonna have to get rid of, ever. We've got more, and we'll probably just keep buying more. We'll never have to get rid of this. It's a big sectional on the back porch. It's got a chair with it. It's the most. I fell asleep on it on Friday night and Saturday night. It was unbelievable. So thanks to our friends at Palm Casual, palmcasual.com, and thanks to all of you. 7 a.m. Saturday morning is when the sale started. JC, I said 7 a.m. in Bluffton. The line was 250 people long when they opened the doors. He said they were from everywhere. He had multiple people come up and say thank you for whatever. They heard about it on the show. And I'm not sure who bought or whatever. Somebody was in there from Orangeburg, and so folks, decided to make a little trip, maybe eat some lunch down in Bluffton or a late breakfast or something, buy some furniture. All of you who participated in this big sale, thank you so much for doing that. They are the best company. They make the best stuff. They will honor every warranty, everything they've got. PalmCasual.com, 4 locations from Myrtle Beach to Bluffton and inland to Somerville here in South Carolina. All right, we'll hit a quick timeout. Plenty more Carolina football when we return on Inside the Gamecocks, built by the Barndo.
Nana's Porch presents a Southern staple delivered right to your doorstep. Nana's Porch locally crafted pimento cheese has been a hit for years at weddings, tailgates, and other events. Now you can order online and have it sent to your home. Visit nanasporch.com. That's nanasporch.com and click the pimento cheese tab to choose between their original pimento cheese and their jalapeno smoked pimento cheese set. nanasporch.com, man, that's good.
Morning, Carl. Usual?
Yeah.
Your oldest was in here the other day. Said the two of you took a trip down to my neck of the woods. How'd that go?
You might as well give me one of those Carolina cards while you're at it.
I knew I liked that one.
Yeah.
There you go, my friend.
Thanks.
Hey, Carl. Congratulations.
See you tomorrow, Freddie.
You bet.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Fans, Club Chief has arrived. Become a Big Chief Club member or a Big Chief Club Golden Gear member for exclusive access to our Nana's Porch chat box on Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Plus, you'll get access to our VIP tailgates, prize drawings, merch, and much more. A portion of your monthly membership goes to the Garnet Trust, supporting NIL at the University of South Carolina. Pull up your Chief Sports app and join on the home page. Thank you so much for being a member of Club Chief, and we look forward to meeting many of you very soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is.
All right, welcome back. Inside the Gamecocks, the show presented by our friends at Electric Bikes of Charleston, electricbikescharleston.com. The good weather is right around the corner, as you all well know. It'll be cooling down. We want to get outside. Maybe you're over the heat, right? You're over the heat, and you want to get back outside and cruise. You got Christmas coming up. It'll be here before you know it. It's October the 1st. Think about that. We're only a couple of months away,
dude,
and we're full gear, right? So if you want to get the good stuff, electricbitescharleston.com, Gamecock owned, Gamecock operated. Also, a special thanks to our friend Eric Ponder. The world is falling apart. It just is falling apart. Everywhere you look, there's war. There's more war. Obviously, what's going on at home here. Eric has served our country. He has been overseas. He's been down on the border. He's with Edward Jones. Like if you are looking to get yourself better financially down the road and you need somebody to do that, Eric, like this guy has respect for people and he will take care of them and he will do the right thing to make sure that your financial future is secure. The world is insecure and he's able to navigate through that in this great career that he's chosen after traveling all over wearing the colors of the red, white, and blue. So put your trust in somebody like Eric Ponder. I mean, our family has. If you head to edwardjones.com, you can type in his name and pull anything up you need to pull up on him. I can give you his number too. It's 864-862-2161. Secure your future with Eric Ponder and with Edward Jones. It's an abbreviated version of ITG. JC and myself, JB, thoughts and prayers again with all of you going through what you're going through with Hurricane Helene. We will continue to work through some technical issues, and we hope to be back up and running live on Wednesday and then moving forward. We did get some good news on that front while we're on the air.
Hopefully.
So hopefully things are headed in the right direction.
I just don't. I feel all right. Having lived in the upstate and having been a customer of the certain wireless company that we're talking about, I love I've been a customer for theirs for 22 years. I've had the same phone number since 2002. I'm a creature of habit. I'm very picky. I'll pay extra to stay with them. In certain parts of upstate South Carolina and Horry County at the beach, the service sucks. And when you're trying to run a show through wireless instead of the hardwired internet, it gets tricky. But we've got internet in Illinois, we got internet in Charleston, so we can maybe we'll figure something out tomorrow, hopefully, and go live. But like I said earlier, I just JB and I both felt like we owed it to our audience, to get something out so you guys have something to listen to if you want to, because we know a lot of you probably could use a little talking ball as a distraction, for those that like the Braves. I'm sure yesterday was a big distraction. If you could get ESPN and watch the doubleheader and
how about that?
Turn around and heading out to play those danged old Padres.
Hey, who didn't think that was coming, by the way, that they were, it's almost like whoever won game one could have cared less about winning game two. So they're probably both going to be in there. The end of game one, I was able to watch it, was bonkers. That was bonkers. I mean, and I thought the Braves had it in them to come back, and they did. And then, the Lindor home run and what I hate to see the Mets win, but anybody that saw that, what I loved about that home run is Lindor swung the bat and he dropped it and he trotted to first and he trotted around the bases like he'd been there before. Unlike some of these other guys who act like they've never hit a home run. This cat hits the ball out of the yard to dead center at Truist Park and he just trotted around the bases and because he's done it, so class act on his part. And then, of course, the Braves turn around and get back in. I think it's Brian Snicker's best managerial job ever, by the way, with all the injuries and everything they've gone through. Sale scratched in the second game yesterday. It was like, oh, my gosh, they're doomed. And yet they pitch a shutout and get into the playoffs for the 7th straight year. So congratulations to the Braves. We'll see what happens today out in San Diego.
Yeah, they owe the Padres for 1998, right? Like the song says. About Morgan Wallen.
Yeah.
That's one of the best songs I've heard in a long time, by the way. It reminded me of earlier times.
It's a different world back then. I know that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Moving forward, JC, obviously we'll spend the rest of the week talking a ton about Carolina, keeping an eye on the health. Robbie Ashford is ready to go if Lenore's isn't. You and I have both heard we feel like Lenore Sellers is going to be okay, and Rocket Sanders. I can tell you this: Rocket Sanders has been working his tail off to get ready to go. I mean, this means something to him to put that uniform on. I was told directly, this kid has been working his tail off to get ready to go. So they're optimistic that Carolina will have their stars in there on offense against the Rebels. And obviously, it will be a tremendous boost to have them to be able to knock off Ole Miss if they can get it. Elsewhere this week, though, in the SEC, you've got this Missouri A&M game at Kyle Field. The Aggies are 2-point favorites in this number 9 Missouri, number 25 Texas A&M matchup on ABC on Saturday afternoon. Auburn's got to head to Athens this weekend, and look, I get it. I get it. Deep South's oldest rivalry. A lot of times, even when one team isn't very good in this series, it still turns out to be a pretty good ball game. I mean, man, I'm just not seeing that for Auburn this weekend. It just feels like there's a train wreck coming. Matter of fact, I feel a little bit better about Alabama and Vanderbilt at 4:15 on the SEC Network in Nashville on Saturday afternoon. Hard to believe, right? Bama is a 22-point favorite in Nashville over the Doors. Auburn's a 24-point dog against Georgia this weekend. Auburn. Tennessee is at Arkansas. Could be a tricky one on Saturday night. That was the game chosen over South Carolina and Ole Miss to be aired on ABC from Razorback Stadium. The Vols are 13.5-point favorites in that ball game. Again, this is what's going on elsewhere in the SEC this weekend. And you got UCF in Florida at 7:45 on the SEC Network Saturday night. And UCF is a 3-point favorite over the Gators in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. If Billy Napier and Florida falls, they'll be 2-3 on the season and they'll be 0-2 against teams from the Sunshine State. They haven't gotten to Florida State yet this year. Florida State, by the way, is hosting Clemson this weekend and a 7:00 kick on ESPN. That game follows Carolina and Ole Miss down in Tallahassee, and the Tigers are 14-point favorites. And then I have been on record, and I'll stay on record. I'll say it every single week. I think College Game Day is awesome. I think Pat McAfee is killer. I think what he does, I said it last year, everybody was hating on him. I took the other side of this thing because he's so entertaining. He's very informative. He knows the right tone and where to be. Nick Saban has added everything to this program. They offset each other remarkably. It's the best production. Fox can do whatever they want. Everybody can do whatever they want. They can't beat Game Day. It is the best. And they're going to need every ounce of that this weekend because Berkeley, California is not a place where college football lives like it does here. It is a boring atmosphere at best. And Miami, who really doesn't have a ton of fans either, that's where they are. Miami at Cal, JC, this weekend. I couldn't think of an odder matchup. An ACC matchup, an odder matchup, though.
It's ACC.
And just even thinking that's where this, like, if Carolina and Ole Miss could have just taken care of business and then had an undefeated Gamecocks Rebels matchup, maybe they'd be back in Columbia this weekend. I'm sure they'd rather be than starting a show at 6 a.m. on the left side of the country between these two programs.
Man, it's the leg brew, like wild guy. And that crowd that I like to kind of jab on the show against what does Mike call them? The pest control experts with the tat on their arms, the U-tat. Oh man, I listened to that episode that we had. I actually I have that in a clip somewhere. I'm gonna do something with that because he just deadpanned it. Plenty of pest control experts with. I was like, that's awesome. And then we all kind of caught it late. It was unbelievable, but I think it's an interesting call to make. Gosh, Cal lost to Florida State. That's kind of an embarrassing loss for them, if you think about it. After you look at what SMU did to FSU. Now, I'm going to say this. If you're Clemson, be careful down there. I mean, look.
DJU is out.
He's out. That's what I'm saying. And you don't know. Sometimes when the backup comes in, even if he's not as highly touted or whatever, it didn't cost you that much money in the portal. that sparks the team because DJ obviously, I didn't think the Georgia Tech loss, JB, was all on him. I thought they kind of got the defense got the ball ran on them and stuff. But these losses since he can't he's been awful. I mean, he's terrible. So if this guy, Brock Glenn, I think is his name, if he's just sort of okay and can get the ball to their playmakers, they could, in theory, turn their season around. I don't think they will. I think Florida State and Auburn both are in the type of trouble that you just don't come back from right now. Just looking at it, but you never know. This year has been surprising. But yeah, that's interesting. They're going out to Berkeley for the Miami game. That's and Miami needs to send a letter of thanks to the ACC office for Saturday or for Friday night's win against the Hokies. Not that I thought it was a catch when he made it, but I didn't think they had enough to overturn the play.
Yeah.
It was that weird of a play, and it took them forever to do it because they said, oh, it's because he was out of bounds and he touched it. Well, that was obvious from the beginning. It took them 12 minutes, which means there was a huddle and a conference about that. And, you know, I don't know. It's hard for me to think that that group of people did not discuss what it meant, the outcome meant for the conference as a whole in that one.
Yeah, that's a play that's obviously getting a lot of run, and it should. I still don't know what to think about it. I've watched it 1,000 times. I think you go back to what the call in the field was, and I'm just not so sure you can overturn it.
I'm not saying it was the right call to begin with either. I don't necessarily think it was. I think the guy did, but you didn't have enough to overturn it, and then it took so long, and you're like, so why did it take so long if it was that simple? Oh, the guy touched it. Well, that was pretty obvious. I don't know, man. I just Virginia Tech, by the way, is 3 plays from being 5-0, and they're 2-3. Lost by 7 to Vandy in overtime, 3 to Rutgers, and that play. So hate it for the Hokies, but I do think they're a pretty good team, and I think we haven't heard the last from them this year. But boy, Miami escaped that one.
Well, they're on the left coast this weekend too. They've got a 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 kick out there at Stanford, and they're 8-point favorites in that game. Hey, you know what? Have you noticed what games at 8:00 Saturday night in the ACC? 5-0 Duke is at Georgia Tech, who's 3-2, and Tech's a 7.5-point favorite in the game over the Blue Devils.
That's mighty interesting.
Somebody knows something hurt? I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Did you have somebody hurt or something? Yeah, is Malik Murphy out? I don't
know who they beaten. You know, they've beaten Elon, they've beaten Northwestern, UConn, in Middle Tennessee, and North Carolina's terrible. You know, and then you look at Georgia Tech, and sometimes, right, as you say, you know, sometimes the record doesn't necessarily tell the tale. You know, of course, I don't know that we know everything about Georgia Tech either. Their 2 losses are on the road at Syracuse and at Louisville. Their wins over VMI, Georgia State, and of course Florida State isn't any good either. I look, Miami and Clemson are the 2 best teams in this league, and they don't play in the regular season. And it seems at this point in time like it's fairly likely that they're going to play in the ACC championship game, which I would imagine the ACC is desperately hoping for. Boston College, you know, we'll see what happens with these guys. They're sitting there at 4-1. I think that they got a chance to, you know, make some noise, but they don't have Miami or Clemson on their schedule this season either, right? So, you know, there's maybe some room to get there. The teams that what did you just say a minute ago? Florida State. You said Florida State and Auburn seem to have problems that it's hard to come back from. Is that what you said?
Yeah, and Florida State, Auburn, North Carolina would be, you know, I was talking today at 107.5, JB, what the big question, what have you learned? I'm like, don't assume anything. That's what I've learned. You know, I sort of felt going into this year, JB, in college football in general, it would be a year where assuming would probably get you in trouble because there was just an awful lot of hot takery and assuming about a lot of things preseason. And This game has a way of cutting you down to size once you think you've got it figured out. I mean, coaches, players, analysts, talk show hosts, whoever, cheerleaders. But yeah, I mean, you have to throw North Carolina on that log as well.
Florida.
Florida, maybe. Florida, if they can find a way, JB, to get UCF this weekend, and I'm just going to point this out. If they could find a way to get to UCF, and UCF crapped the bed big time. I mean, Coach Prime blew them out.
Yeah.
I mean, so that I don't think it's out of the question that the Gators win, and that doesn't mean the Gators are some great team. That just kind of means you've played two teams that aren't that good in Mississippi and UCF. But if they can find a way to win, let's say, and they've historically played Tennessee well. I doubt they give them much resistance this year, but that puts them at 3-3, and then you got Kentucky, and then you got Georgia, Texas, so 4-5. That LSU and Ole Miss and Florida State are the final three. I think LSU is getting better and better every week, but it's in Gainesville. Ole Miss is also in Gainesville. If Ole Miss's season is like a 7-4-ish, that's a chance for a win. And then Florida State, maybe their best chance for a win on the schedule. So they could maybe turn it around and get to 7. I don't know if that's the long-term answer down there or not, but this UCF game is pivotal. They lose this one, JB, I'm going to put them in the point of no return, kind of with the rest of them. But I do think that they did show some resilience going and beating a bad, like the Mississippi State team last week, like Mississippi State. But by the way, did anybody's raise your hand if your butt got tight watching the scores come in from Austin this past weekend?
Yeah. I think that was in a sleep at the wheel Texas team. I mean, it was crystal clear to me later in the game. It was like, all right, hey guys, can we move along here? Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry about that, coach. Okay. We got you. And they're off, and then they've got Oklahoma. It just seemed to me like it was the classic line of college football. You just have, like, Texas goes into Michigan. They do what they're bored. I mean, the last 2 weeks they've outscored UTSA and UL Monroe 108 or 107-10. Like, I just feel like they're bored. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. In the past, and the reason, it stinks that Mississippi State, because Mississippi State's problems are really personnel. I mean, they're down players. They didn't have very many players to start with. It is a Lou Holtz at South Carolina in 1999 kind of deal, maybe even worse. I mean, they're just not. They could play the best they want to, and somebody could take them lightly, and the other team's still probably going to win. But that's my issue with Texas is sometimes they do show up and they're not interested and they are bored. That's been a problem. And in the Big 12, it would end in either, when they weren't, as good, they take 3 or 4 losses like that to the TCUs and Baylors of the world and everybody else. In the SEC, you start doing that and against anybody else but Mississippi State on Saturday, they could have been in trouble. You can't be bored because the other team will beat you. They're good, they're not like Kansas or whoever where you can just kind of win at the end. But that I thought that was interesting because I was about to really criticize myself for saying that could be an upset, but I think everybody sees why, because I've watched Texas do that. They look like, they're going to win the Super Bowl one week. I say that kind of in jest, obviously. And then the next week they look like, they can't beat Rice. So that's and it's cultural. It's just interesting. I think Sark's done a good job, he and his staff, of getting a lot of that out of their system. But there's still times like last year, Kansas State had them beat. TCU almost had them beat. Oklahoma did beat them. Well, then they went and played Oklahoma State and just destroyed them. I mean, they in the SEC, I feel like even the really good teams with a lot of talent, have to remain interested in order to have that beautiful record at the end. That's why Alabama was so good under Saban, because there was rarely a letdown game for Alabama. And if there was, there'd be hell to pay in practice the next week, and everybody knew it.
Well, this week they've got rat traps all over the facility in Tuscaloosa. And it looks like, that's one of the things I will say is that game this past weekend was just a remarkable college football game. It really was. But and I know we'll hit one more time out here and come back and begin to wind things down. But I'll add this. The Kalen DeBoer situation is one, and we got a long way. Look, this is year one. We have no idea what it's going to look like in year 3 or 4 or 5. But to be in year one and to be where you are, this is one of the more fascinating things that we have seen in sports, because replacing the guy is generally DOA. You're dead on arrival. And he not only is maybe the best active college football coach. I mean, he really is just an outstanding coach. He didn't come in and try to separate everything from the Saban era. This is my show. We're going to do things my way. He didn't do that, right? He came in and he embraced it. And think about that, like putting rat traps on. That's a Saban thing, rat poison. He embraced that. He's embracing it. He's not running from it. Most of those players aren't his. They're Nick Saban's. And he is embracing. You have to embrace the history at Alabama. You can't be scared of it. But he is embracing the previous staff and how they built this program, but also infiltrating it with what he thinks is best for him to move forward. It really is going to be an incredible case study to watch. And I think he learned a lot on Saturday night too. And what he learned was, in this league, you can be up 28-0. And when you're playing the better teams, you don't take a seat. You better keep your foot on the gas pedal. That's why Kirby Smart is so elite as well. That was incredible. But this Kalen DeBoer situation is just this is amazing how he's kept this train just.
Well,
tracks.
Nobody talks about it, but at Sioux Falls, where he went 67-3, he took over for the legendary coach, and that had won a lot of championships.
Experience in that. Yeah.
And then he won 3 national championships in 4 years and took over for the guy. I don't remember who he replaced at Fresno State, but he went in during the pandemic. The next year went 9-3, left it in good shape. He did not replace Chris Peterson at Washington. He replaced Jimmy Lake, but Peterson had kind of laid the foundation as far as them being used to winning. But he put that thing together through the portal and won 25-3 and played for a national championship. And, so I continue to think Alabama hired
Tedford.
He replaced Jeff Tedford.
And then he came back.
And then Tedford came back.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Okay.
I continue to say this. I think Alabama hired the best coach in the country that they possibly could. I think that was he's better than Mike Norvell. He's certainly better than Dan Lanning. He's a winner and a proven winner. And it didn't matter where he's from. He's guys from South Dakota, right? He's a Dakotan, kind of came from out yonder. I remember when he was at Indiana as the offensive coordinator, he was a guy that, when Will Muschamp was changing OCs, I think a buddy of mine and I talked about how they should probably go hire this guy from Indiana because he's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And he is. And he's an outstanding football coach. And I got a hot take on that too. I think for Jalen Milroe, what Kalen DeBoer does on offense fits Jalen Milroe so much better than what maybe Tommy Rees, especially early, was trying to do with him last season at Alabama. I think Rees kind of figured it out as the year went along, but this is a I mean, you remember what Michael Penix did in this offense last year. I mean, this is an offense that can take advantage of the strengths of a guy like Jalen Milroe. And it's also a fearless offense. I mean, all right, we're just going to go downtown to our true freshman, let him go make a play. And that kid,
wow.
5 weeks have passed, right? And recruiting rankings obviously are long-term projections. You don't really judge them till the draft comes and stuff like that. And I get it. I cannot believe that Ryan Williams and Dylan Stewart, neither one were the number one players at their position last year. I mean, I think right now they're the top, probably at least 2 of the top 3 or 4 freshmen in the country. It's early, and you never know. One of these other upside guys may pass them, but I can't imagine anybody. Ryan Williams, he's just special, and he's got the moxie and pizzazz to go with it. He's dynamite. He's a dynamite player.
Yeah, he is. These guys, watching them, yeah. I think it's Ryan Williams is the best wide receiver in the country right now. You can argue anybody you want. I'll take this kid. Give me this kid over any of those other guys as long as they've been around. He is special. And Jalen Milroe, just we talked a little bit about him in the summer. I thought he was kind of my favorite quarterback coming in for every reason you just mentioned a minute ago, and he's proving to be just beyond dynamic. And that makes Alabama as scary as anybody in college football if this kid is playing like I mean, if you ask me today or anybody, I don't know what everybody's answer would be. I'm not a Heisman voter. If I was, Jalen Milroe is my guy. He is right now. He's cleared himself of Cam Ward and pretty much anybody else who was in the conversation. Long ways to go. But the thing with him too, he'll have continue to have so many big games to prove those type of things as well. Alabama's going to have so many of them to play in. All right, let's hit one more quick timeout. We'll do that, and we'll begin to wind things down. Again, thoughts and prayers with everybody and what they're going through with Hurricane Helene. JC and I are doing our best to distract you from some of what is the world around us. We hope you'll stick with us right here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show presented by our friends at Resto Pros.
Hey, this is Cornbread Cowboy, and you're listening to the show. We'll be right back.
If you're a fan of music, incredible storytelling,
one of our friends had met this beautiful girl at the bar that night.
a bit of history, you should check out my new show, Southern Songwriters with Patrick Davis. Every episode features a unique South Carolina town, a different stage, and music from world-class singer-songwriters. Join me for Southern Songwriters with Patrick Davis.
The Aventon Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventon Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting. Hydraulic disc brakes, torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more.
Hi, I'm Joel Lurie. If you're turning 65 this year or retiring soon, you probably have questions about Medicare. How do I enroll in Medicare? When do I need to enroll? And what plan fits my needs and budget?
Why use an out-of-state call center when you can work with a local agency?
At Lurie Life and Health, we'll research your doctors and prescription drugs, and we'll help you find the plan that meets your needs and budget.
Lurie Life and Health. Our service is at no cost. Call Lurie Life and Health in Columbia, 803-256-2067.
Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, in Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products in out-of-state locations. Gamecock owned and operated. Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. Thebarndominiumco.com.
All right, final segment inside the Gamecocks, October the 1st. The show is built by the Barndo Co., presented by our friends at South Carolina Education Lottery and Resto Pros of the Midlands, RestoProsMidlandsSC.com. Final quick 10 minutes or so here, JC. We hope to be live and back on the air on Wednesday, and then moving forward as we get into Ole Miss and South Carolina this weekend at Williams-Brice Stadium. Again, it's a 3:30 kickoff on ESPN. Gamecocks looking to improve to 4-1 and looking to drop Ole Miss to 4-2 overall. Rebels upset by Kentucky this past weekend, and they'd be off to an 0-2 start in the league. So we'll hit on this more throughout the week too. I'm really excited about the next couple of weeks because we're seeing something we don't ever see. I mean, it goes to show you how I think terrible the SEC scheduling model was. The fact that the Rebels haven't been here in 15 years. And now that was a memorable night. Sandstorm was created that night, the birth of it, if you will, in college football, really where, Gamecocks upset number 4 Ole Miss. Jevin Sneed, Dexter McCluster, those guys on a Thursday night. It was a beautiful Thursday night on ESPN. And Carolina upset them. But it's been 15 years. It's 15 since Ole Miss came to town. Subsequently, it's been 15 years since the Gamecocks went down to Alabama, because that happened in 2009. Remember when they snapped the ball the entire second half to Mark Ingram, and ultimately, I think the final score was 20-6 or something like that, and they beat Carolina. There's no reason for that. Like, you're playing in the same league, and you're waiting 15 years to go back, to go to one or the other's ballpark. I mean, Georgia and Alabama, JC, we mentioned it last week. That was the first time, or the second time, I'm sorry, just the second time in 16 years that the Dogs have been in Tuscaloosa. Mm-hmm. They neighbor each other. There's a border between them. That's it. There's no reason to not be able to hop on I-20 and head west and go play football against the Tide. So whatever they end up settling on, 1-7 or 3-6, if they go to the 9 games, I don't know. But I'm just happy that these games are back. It's good for the league. It's good for the players. And I'm excited this weekend to finally have the Rebels back in Columbia.
Yeah, and then they have to figure out the balance of it, though. This is fun. This is ridiculous, though, for teams trying to win games this year, JB, because, you look at a school like Texas and their schedule, then look at Oklahoma's, and they didn't really do it. They said they did so, but they tried to shove all these rivalries in, and then that caused a cascading effect with some other schools. And I'm not even complaining about the Gamecocks so much as some of these other ones that just don't make any sense. And they're going to also have to get off of this. Let's make a schedule model that'll last us for 17 years. I'm never in favor of any kind of European soccer influencing American college football or football in general ever. If you like that so much, there's leagues you can follow, get up at 8 a.m, have a Guinness, whatever. I do think, though, that other college football leagues don't even release their conference schedule until a year in advance as far as who you're playing. You don't always know. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't rotate. And I think the SEC is going to have to do something like that in terms of competitive balance. Now, sure, you're going to need to play, you can probably have to do it for 4 years because you want to play everybody 1 year, home and away over 4 years. So you can do that, but you have to bring it in the now. You can't just assume, and with the portal nowadays, it may be impossible to do that year to year anyway. But what I'd like to see them do is say, okay, for the next 4 years, here's your 7, here's your 7, here's your 7, here's your 7. And then we're going to redo it. So you may have a completely different 7, that you play, because what you don't want to have to do is like, well, whoever wins the SEC, it literally just depends on who their 7 is. I mean, is it fair to compare Georgia to Texas? I know they play, but what if Georgia beats Texas, but they got the loss to Alabama, and then they got to go to Ole Miss and lose by a point, and yet they go to Texas and win by 20, but Texas wins all their other games because they don't really have anybody else that's all that difficult, because they don't. They have Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. They have a lot of Texas. Oklahoma is. Oklahoma and A&M are kind of similar type teams, I think. So I don't know. I just don't know. And I don't think there's any kind of preferential treatment towards Texas. I just think Texas's rivals are Arkansas and A&M, and they wanted to be on the schedule. So that took 2, and then they kind of divided everything else up. But it's I do think they got to start looking at that and setting the schedule like more frequently, I guess. I also think that could move them back to divisions at some point, because, and I wouldn't mind this, as you're not relegating, but hey, here's your divisions for the next 4 years. And then we're going to look at it again. And you don't have to do East and West. You can do A and B. And I think that would be better, because, it's going to really suck when good football teams are finishing 12th in the league.
I know. I agree with that. I think that that's going to wear on people, because it's going to happen a lot. I mean, probably not for Alabama and Georgia and Texas, JC, but for everybody else, there's going to be a year where you have an LSU who finishes 11th, right, or an Auburn who finishes 12th and 13th, and probably even finishing 12th. Still sitting there at 7-5 and in a bowl game. But I just don't know. Like, I think that they will go back to divisions at some point in time. But I think when they do that, they need to do that under kind of like what you were just saying a minute ago. You go back to divisions, but that's not what dictates your schedule. Like, you go back into divisions, you still have a rotation where you get to play. Maybe they are on a 9-game league schedule at that point in time, which is going to give you a larger sample size anyways. But, that was the issue before, where you just played everybody in your division, and then you had the 1-1. And why? Like, you can still have divisions and not have to play everybody in your division. I get it. I understand the idea behind that, but you don't have to. Like, there's no rule that says that you have to do that, but you can still have a division and win the division to be able to compete in the conference championship game.
Yeah, I mean, what you do is if you want to have everybody play the teams in your division, then okay. So like this year, South Carolina be in a division with Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, Missouri, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and then when they rotate it the other way, you're in a division with the other 7 you play. Now, thinking about that, I'd have to get on the spreadsheet and see if that would work mathematically. I'm not smart enough to figure that out. But yeah, they got to do something about it, because I just think that I understand the TV part of it. You want the championship game to be a great game between the 2 best teams. But I think we've sacrificed plenty for TV, right, in this sport. And I think that, wait until you have Auburn and Alabama finishing 1 and 2 in the league, and it's already predetermined 2 weeks before the SEC championship game, and then they have to go play the Iron Bowl the week before they play. It's going to be like that doubleheader last night,
right?
As far as the drama, and what does it mean and stuff. So we'll see what happens, but hopefully hopefully they'll figure it out. The SEC usually makes the right choices, so we'll see.
Sometimes it's as simple as looking at a map, drawing a line, saying these are the teams in the Eastern Division, these are the teams in the Western Division, and this year you're going to play all these teams in the Eastern Division and these teams in the Western Division. Next year you're going to flip and play this group of teams in both divisions. I don't know. Maybe that makes too much sense. As far as this East-West matchup this weekend, although that's not what it is anymore, but in my mind it still is. We'll tee up a couple of things that we'll kind of come back to as the week moves along, and gets closer to Ole Miss and Carolina. You mentioned earlier third downs. The Wildcats held Ole Miss to 1 of 10 on third down conversions this past weekend on their home field. That's important. Carolina has been getting off to outstanding starts this year. It was a problem the last couple of years. Magically, nobody complains about it when it's not a problem anymore. But I remember things, and over the last 2-3 seasons, they're getting off to terrible starts. They're getting off to terrible starts. They're getting off to terrible starts. This year, they've gotten off pretty good starts, and they've outscored teams like 40-6 in the first quarter. That's good news. Well, this is bad news. Ole Miss in the first quarter this year, they have outscored their opponents 85-6. So, as we get into more and more conversation about this game this weekend, the first quarter seems pretty crucial. Carolina and Ole Miss, whoever, gets off to a pretty good start Saturday afternoon, seems like they got a good chance to win the ball game. And that has presented itself just like that throughout the year for both these programs, JC. So just a couple of quick stats to kind of tee up as we carry the conversation on the next few days.
Absolutely. I think that this team has started fast all year. As far as the Gamecocks go, I mean, slowest start was probably Kentucky. And shoot, I think it was the second or third drive, 4 plays, 61 yards, touchdown. And that's kind of the moment we saw the offense come to life, so to speak, against what's looking to be a pretty salty defense, to be honest with you, in Kentucky. So, and then of course LSU was off to a good start. Here's one concern that I have, and I hope this is just kind of a phase and not a trend. Look, Shane Beamer's record when leading at halftime, leading after 3, whatever, he's outstanding. The record is outstanding. But since the Gator Bowl, there have been 4 games where they've lost big leads. Gator Bowl was one. That was 24-10 Notre Dame. Then Georgia on the road, up 14-3 at halftime, double-digit lead. The Florida game was a disaster last year. They lost that in the fourth quarter. The other ones weren't in the fourth quarter. And then, of course, that LSU game when they're up 17-0. So I think against Ole Miss, if you give them a right hook early and you've got them on the ropes, you got to keep swinging, because what happens many times is a team that gets into a funk, and if Ole Miss comes out and falls behind 17-3 or something to Carolina and the place going crazy, that means they're in a funk, right? LSU was in a funk. You don't want to back off and let them figure it out during the game and get out of their funk, because then they become dangerous. I thought Notre Dame was that way in the Gator Bowl. Florida, not so much. Florida, that game was a little different. And then that Georgia game last year, yeah, they were in a funk for a half, just like they were in Tuscaloosa this past weekend, and their staff went and made adjustments, and you saw what happened. So that was it. Sometimes it's just a matter of the other team adjusting. But I think that's just looking at it. If Carolina, it does have another good start Saturday, they need to get out there and keep pouring it on. That's offense and defense playing complementary football. In other words, offense scores a big touchdown to put you up, 16-6 or double digits. Defense can't go out and immediately give away give up a touchdown drive. That they got to keep attacking, keep the big plays on till it's not in doubt anymore.
Carolina wins on Saturday. They'll be 7-2 in their last 9 games. A lot of wins there for Shane Beamer since last November. If they can figure out a way to get it done, and one of those 2 was just stolen from underneath him against LSU a couple of weeks ago, as we all well know. We'll continue to pray for all of you And if you need anything, pull up that Chief Sports app, shoot us an email, send us a nugget, whatever it is. Who knows, maybe you need help getting some information to somebody. JC and Phil and myself, our team, we're a facilitator of information. It's kind of the world we work in. And if there's a way for us to help you to get anything to your family, to your friends, whatever it is, we'll do that. We know Hurricane Helene has just destroyed the lives of many, unfortunately, and we love this place as much as anybody does, and we'll do anything it takes to get it back to where it needs to be. So that's it for us. We're gonna hang it up here on this Tuesday afternoon, October the 1st. We look to be back on the air full steam ahead tomorrow, Wednesday, October the 2nd, as long as we don't have any more technical issues to deal with. Any quick parting shots here before we get out of town, JC?
No, I guess we may have a JC and Morgan tomorrow. That's part of our network too, so we're still trying to figure that out. So bear with us, but hopefully everybody enjoyed this one, and I'm ready to get back to the live end of things and get back on track. But certainly, as JB said, our priority, thoughts and prayers wise, and anything you guys need is with you guys out there that are struggling, having a hard time right now. It was a tragedy, and I just hope and pray that everyone in our audience is safe first and foremost, and that you recover quickly. It's sickening and sad. It just kind of puts a bad feeling inside of you to see what's happened out there to so many good people. So hopefully this is a quick recovery and everybody's fine. And hopefully we're back on track tomorrow and head on into game day with some positive vibes. How about that?
No doubt. Carolina trying to get to 4-1 this weekend. For JC, I am JB. We hope you have a terrific Tuesday. Inside the Gamecocks, the show built by the Barndo Co. and presented by our friends at Resto Pros. They are there right now when you need them. Resto Pros Midlands SC.com. We will hopefully see you tomorrow here on ITG.